Welcome to the Sitrep podcast, your source for modern military wargaming. I'm Oriskany Jim, and today we're looking at the recent World War II tank battle game between myself and Gianna, a high firepower scenario recreating a small part of the tank clash at Prokhorovka. The system we used was the Avalon Hill classic PanzerBlitz, with some mechanics drawn in from subsequent editions of the system like Panzerleader and Arab-Israeli Wars. In all, the game took 6 hours divided between 2 streaming sessions, but here we're just going to take a fast overview to hit the highlights of how it went. Oh, and also, the second part of our stream and recording was super laggy, guys, and it didn't even record the last hour of our broadcast at all, which of course includes the game's final result. Super sorry about that, everyone, and I'm hoping that this fixes things just a little. So Prokhorovka is a small railroad town in southern Russia that saw what most historians agree is the largest localized clash of tanks in the history of warfare. Fought between the forces of Germany and the Soviet Union, it was part of the larger Battle of Kursk, which, again, historians usually crown as the largest single battle in human history. Prokhorovka was fought on July 12, 1943, which is why we chose to feature it in our recent July 12th stream. So anyway, guys, the history behind Prokhorovka and Kursk has literally filled libraries of books. But for now, suffice it to say that there was a massive salient, or bulge, in the German line about twice the size of New Jersey. The Germans would set up converging attacks against the flanks of the northern and southern shoulders of this salient, hoping to slice it off in a gigantic pocket. And when the armored spearhead of their southern attack was just starting to threaten a breakthrough here in the south, the Soviets committed an absurd number of tanks in the form of their 5th Guards Tank Army detached from their strategic reserve. 5th Guards Tank Army would meet the entirety of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps here at the little railroad town of Prokhorovka, and the rest, well, is history. Now, we also took a fast look at how big Prokhorovka would actually be if you tried to build and run the whole battle in a game like PanzerBlitz. It's a ridiculous undertaking, not unlike trying to do the whole of Waterloo in something like Sharp's Practice. Even in a command tactical game like Panzerleader, the map would be 9 by 6 feet, assuming 1-inch hexes, and have nearly 2,500 counters on the table. In a 15mm game, we're talking about a table 600 feet wide, with over 1,500 vehicles, never mind the infantry and artillery. So naturally, we're only doing a small slice of the battle, and only the opening hour or two of what was an all-day battle. Oh, one last quick note. This battle included some of the most controversial soldiers that fought for Germany in World War II, namely 1st Leibstandarte Division of the Waffen-SS. We're talking about a seriously dark reputation here. But they were the men on that field on that day. So while we're including them in our historical game, in no way are we condoning any of the conduct or history of this division, or really anything they stood for. So with that acknowledgement made, we're going to go ahead and move on. The game includes lead elements of the 1st SS Panzer Division, along with plenty of tanks, grenadiers in half-tracks, self-propelled guns, self-propelled artillery, and even 2 platoons of the dreaded Tiger I. So interesting fact, Michael Wittmann was here at Prokhorovka on July 12, 1943, and he would command one of the 10 Tiger tanks represented by these 2 Tiger platoons. Meanwhile, I took charge of the Soviets, specifically lead elements of the 29th Tank Corps, including attached assault guns, tank destroyers, attached air support that was with 29th Tank Corps on the day, and also a battalion of motorized infantry. Also on the field is going to be a few Guards airborne rifle units, part of the historical Soviet force that was desperately trying to hold this line before this massive collision of tanks took place. The actual game board is going to include 5 pre-marked and designated objective hexes. As is usually the case with these war games, whoever controls the majority of these objectives at the end of turn 10 will be declared the winner. There are no victory condition points, by the way, based on destroyed enemy units or surviving friendly units. This is a do or die mission for both sides. Welcome to the Eastern Front. So with all that build up and introduction out of the way, let's finally get started with what happened on turn 1. So again, Gianna is playing the Germans, I'm playing the Soviets. Gianna moves first. As the Germans, she's the attacker for this scenario. Now, in order to get this stream started a little bit early, I went ahead and took both sides' first movements before the stream started. Again, I was just trying to get the stream going and get us to an actual exciting, exchange of fire right off the bat to entertain our viewers. So when I took the liberty of setting up Gianna's units on their first turn of entry, you can see here where they entered in through their designated entry hexes marked by this gray band down here in the center. Okay, and as they came up, they split generally into two columns. So a main column came right up this northeastern road here, trying to take this objective hex with their fastest and most easily defensible units. That's their mechanized infantry or their grenadiers, their half-track grenadiers. Okay, so they took that first objective right off the bat. Along the way, they passed this crossroads, so they took that objective as well, and a detached reinforced company of grenadiers, along with some pioneer infantry, went up this western road here to take this other objective hex here on Hill 241.6. So, right off the bat, the Germans already have 3 out of the 5 objective hexes. Before the Soviets even come on the table, the Germans are winning the game 3-2. The Germans also detached their Panzerjäger, that's their anti-tank detachment, over here to guard their right wing. Immediately after that, of course, me playing the Soviets, I moved my own forces on the table, again, coming on their designated entry hexes up here in the northeast. And predictably, they came down through here. They took this objective hex on the back of Hill 252.2. People who study the Battle of Prokhorovka are going to recognize that name, that's for sure. That's a big one. And this game would not disappoint. We'd also have some very heavy combat on Hill 252.2. But they took that objective hex. I set up my anti-tank guns, and I'm just about to take that objective hex, and I am sending the bulk of my forces down this road past October State Farm, and now they're going to rush down here, and we are getting set up for what I am anticipating is going to be the mother of all close-range tank battles, or as I am compelled to charge Gianna. She already holds the high ground. All she's going to do is she's going to dismount these grenadiers. Her tanks and heavy assault guns are all set up behind, ready to go in a heavy tank defense. And what's going to happen is I'm going to have to rush this objective and take the mother of all opportunity phases, opportunity fire phases, as I try to close with that objective hex. A little bit like Prokhorovka actually happened. But as I was quickly to learn, Gianna would have some surprises in store for us. Okay, so as I was about to learn to my chagrin, Gianna did not approve of my initial deployment and disposition of her forces. Here's the good news. Turn 1's already done. So,
What?
G,
I wouldn't set my stuff up like that, you cheater!
And she immediately changed her plan, which is totally fair. It's a live game. So what she did, rather than try to hold that central objective hex, with the forces that she had on hand and the supporting gun line of tanks and assault guns staged right here behind it, she about faced and she fell back to the second objective hex here and set up another line of defense about another 3/4 of a kilometer behind her initial position. Meanwhile, she finished securing her position up here on Hill 241.6. So now she legit owns this objective hex. She still owns the second objective hex, and quite honestly, she's given up this central objective hex here, number 3. So, being the kindly Soviet that I am, I went ahead and took it for her. Hey, if she's going to put it down, I'm going to pick it up. Now, that might seem like a weird move to make, but in all honesty, I do see what Gianna was trying to do here. She's just trying to make me charge across that open field.
Would I do that?
You know what? Just for fun, I might do it. Because one thing you definitely want to do when you're engaging Soviets on the Eastern Front, as the Germans, you always want to try to engage them at range. And to Gianna's credit, a lot of this tank battle that would have taken place right in this rough rectangle here is, as you can see, within 3 and 4 hexes. It would have been kind of close. So if you want to engage the Soviets at a little bit more of an arms distance, which is advantageous for the German player, she did fall back. She did set up a nice little gun line. Her mortars are here. Her Stugs are back here. She's got Mark 3s, Mark 4s, more Mark 4s, of course her Tigers. She's ready to put some serious long-range pain on me as I come down south.
We need to keep an eye on Jim, look. He's gone all quiet.
Right now, Jim is going, what? She's kidding. What is the plan of the Germans? Why did they pull back? What do they have up their sleeve?
I already know what your plan is. Your plan is to undo the fair play I showed you on turn 1. So when you lose this game, you get to complain that I cheated for the rest of the week. I already see your plan.
Huh.
I know I'm going to take some pretty serious opportunity fire as I move forward, so I lead off with my heaviest units. That's my mighty Su-152s. And as I do that, what happens? Well, she fires literally every gun that can come to bear on the Soviet armored vehicles, forming my new spearhead. She should have killed at least one Su-152 or several platoons of T-34s, maybe even a whole company of T-70s, depending on what she decided to shoot at. But guys, what can I say? She literally dropped a 6 on the table. That's the worst possible result in a Panzer leader game. We quite literally dodged the mother of all bullets there. So Gianna did have an alternative plan. She set it up correctly, but the dice gods just decided otherwise. In all seriousness, I mean, we're going to kid around a lot all day. Super appreciate anybody who plays any of our live war games, especially Panzer Leader. It's not an easy game, at least in this day and age. So anyone who's willing to put up with me ramble through, hours of this nonsense, I do definitely appreciate it. That said, your guys can't shoot for shit.
Yeah.
So here we are on turn 3, and what can I say? One more time, Gianna confounds my expectations. So I was all set to set up to pretty much the bulk of 29th Tank Corps and send them down in a huge charge right across these open fields, pretty much like you see in a lot of Soviet and German military history on the Eastern Front. Again, we're talking about hundreds of tanks. Again, every counter on this map equals 5 tanks. So I'm about ready to send at least 20 counters of tanks, over 100 armored vehicles. I'm about to send it all down here, this giant bulldozer, into that gun line that she had there. Except on her turn 3, she turned around and she redeployed again. She again fell back. She gave up a second objective hex right here. One more time. If she's going to put it down, I'm going to pick it up.
So, Gaz,
1, 2,
analyzing the battlefield, what do you think?
Yes.
What do you think?
I think there's a lot of black and there's a lot of red. And we need to thin these numbers down.
I keep trying. I was about to overrun her and give her the mother of all opportunity fire phases, but then she ran away again. So I don't know what's going on with these SSs.
Ran away.
However, I'm finally beginning to see what I think she's up to here. So we see her Mark 4s, we see her Tigers, we see her Stugs and her Mark 3s. She's starting a massive lateral redeployment back up here along the Belgorod-Kursk rail line, and she's going to make a push up the southern slopes of Hill 252. And she's making a play for this objective hex and this objective hex. Oh, sorry. This objective hex. These two right here. Never mind that one there. That one's incorrect. These two objective hexes. We're going to see what happens here. This is a classic East Front battle of Soviet firepower and numbers versus German tactical flexibility and maneuver. I refuse to be distracted by all these shenanigans on my flanks.
Shenanigans.
I hold the center. I hold 4 of 5 objective hexes. I'm fine. I could lose one objective hex right now and still win the game. So, you gave me the center of the field, G. If you put it down, I'm going to pick it up. That's how it works.
Okay.
Okay, so here we are on the end of turn 4. And Gianna is continuing to deny that full-on frontal clash of German versus Soviet armor. Given the preponderance of Soviet firepower, especially at close range, that's probably a good idea. Again, Soviet firepower doesn't drop off until long range. At long range, German firepower is better, but at short range, especially with these kind of numbers, Soviet firepower is nothing to mess with. So she has detached a piece of her Grenadier battalion that originally took Hill 241.6. It's backing up her self-propelled artillery down here. Here's the bulk of the regiment. And what she has done is taken about half of those troops in half tracks. There's three platoons of Grenadiers up here and one platoon of Pioneer German infantry, German engineers. And instead of engaging in a frontal battle here, she has gone ahead and flanked way up here to the north. But it looks like she's trying to flank her way around here, come down through October State Farm, and get at another one of my objectives. Again, from an alternative angle, she's denying frontal battle, which, again, given the nature of the Soviet forces facing her, is probably not a bad idea. There is some pretty heavy action going on down here in the south. Finally, we do see a little bit of a stand being taken from the German anti-tank detachment. That's the Panzerjäger Abteilung. 7.5s, those are the Pak 40s. We see two platoons of Mark 4s detached from the Panzer Battalion, and some martyrs who are now burning martyrs. So yeah, I'm starting to see an exchange of fire. That's not quite enough for 7-1. Damn it!
Damn it!
The odds column jumps. It goes from 4-1 to... Okay, you know what? I'm going to have to throw in at least one of my Su-152s on there. One Su-52 makes it...
It's just a martyr, Jim. It's just a martyr.
It's the only thing I can see right now. And I got to kill something, because...
Hey, at least Novus Templar's on my side.
Hey!
Takes 50 Ruskies to hit one German tank.
I have taken some losses, and again, some of my units are pinned down. They're not going to rally very easily, because I don't have as good a morale as the Germans do. But the real bad news for me is up here. So we're looking at, let's see, it looks like about 12 counters of German tanks. Mark 3s, Mark 4s, Stugs, and Tigers. There are 2 counters of Tigers there. 10 Tigers, one of them is Michael Wittmann. And, yeah, 60 Waffen-SS tanks, heavy tanks, and assault guns are coming up the south slope of Hill 252. I can't even see them yet because they're using that terrain there, those tree lines there to mask their approach. I'm not happy about this. This is... Yeah, she's about to come out of that tree line like the Kool-Aid man on bath salts. So this is already causing me some concern. You will see where I've sort of hooked down here with the bulk of 31st Tank Brigade. 32nd Tank Brigade was massed pretty much in this little area. They were supposed to come down here in a big pincer and sort of smash this German center area in the southern part of the battlefield. Instead, I've had to redeploy and pull back the bulk of 32nd Tank Brigade and try to set up an emergency defense back here against what I'm anticipating is going to be a very nasty battle royal up there on the summit of Hill 252.2, just like there was historically. So we're going to see how that plays out going forward. Okay guys, we're looking at the end of turn 5, and it is now officially on. So again, as I kind of kiddingly call them, Battle Group Baja, because they kind of went on this off-road race way up here, all the way through the German back, or to the Soviet backfield, and now they're starting to threaten me from the north. You know what? Just because apparently it's a thing. Actually, no, I'm not going to be stupid. I'm not going to get distracted by Gianna's Baja off-road race up here to God knows where the hell she thinks she's going. I was about to send some light armor up there to chase down those half tracks. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to literally show my flank to all this artillery on the high ground. Hi guys, don't mind us. We're just kind of, oh wait, we're dead.
Jim just caught himself doing a, ooh, squirrel.
Yeah. They are poised to strike again against that center objective hex I hold there in the center of the battlefield. I do have some rear security elements that I left back there. Okay guys, when you play a game like Panzer Leader, PanzerBlitz, Arab-Israeli Wars, rear security is a thing. Watch your rear, watch your flanks. Yeah, so I'm definitely keeping an eye on those Grenadiers up there in the north. Okay, down here to the south, things have really kicked off in a big way. So some German air support has arrived in the form of the HS-129 tank buster. They have now destroyed some Soviet tanks with their big automatic cannon. Some hardcore East Front style, classic pack front type of battle. That's German Pak 40 7.5s against T-70s. Those Mark 4s tried to overrun some of my units here. I'm not going to lie, I'm not 100% sure that overrun was the hottest idea given the amount of Soviet covering fire that was available.
My Mark IVs, I want to overrun.
Okay, cool. Where are they going to overrun to?
Well, for the shits and giggles, because we haven't done it yet, let's pop them right into 25, 22.
That will, okay, the commander of those Mark IVs say, sir, repeat.
Good call.
Yeah. But it didn't really work. One German unit survived. I was able to counter overrun with some light tanks, although that counter overrun was counter opportunity fired by more PaK 40 fire over here to the east, with aircraft flying overhead. So guys, like I'm saying, this little fracas down here is turning into an absolute nightmare of close range, point blank sort of combat. I have detached part of my 1446 self-propelled anti-tank regiment down here to engage Hill 241.6.
Yeah.
No, we
One,
played.
2, 3, 4,
Oh,
5.
Counting.
Hey, guess how much you go and no, I'm just kidding.
Jump off the plane.
Hey, can I do opportunity fire?
Yes, as soon as gas stops making me laugh in the middle of my movement phase. I don't anticipate taking this objective hex, but I don't want Gianna to get too comfortable up there. She has 3 very powerful batteries of self-propelled artillery up there. Or I should say she had 3 batteries of self-propelled artillery up there. These Su-76s are already now engaging, and they're knocking out the first ones of those. Not a moment too soon, given the extreme range of these units. These fire over these trees, over this valley, which again is at least 3 or 4 kilometers, well, 2 or 3 kilometers across, over to the high ground of Hill 252. She can see all this because she's on the same elevation level on Hill 241.6. And as she starts to land artillery on these units, yeah, it's not good. Meanwhile, Soviet infantry has now engaged with German tanks here in this tree line. They're not going to do terribly well there. The Germans aren't, because tanks aren't really made for fighting infantry, especially at that range, especially in woods. So I've already launched a CAT attack, for close assault tactics. Pretty much it's a sticky bomb attack. We're going to swarm her tanks with infantry. We're going to throw grenades. We're going to slide anti-tank mines into the tracks. We're going to shoot pistols through the vision port. So far we're looking at 300 Soviet infantry and Guards Airborne Riflemen. That's a hell of a force. Put that on a belt action table. Attacking 15, that's 3 platoons of these Mark IIIs here at point blank range. So far those guys are alive. They haven't been destroyed yet, but they are pinned down and they need some help. So things are starting to heat up over here on Hill 252.2 as well. I think both sides have sort of realized that the time has now arrived to really start fighting over these objective hexes. Good news for me, I already own 4 of them. So if I could hold what I've got, or hold what I've got and even lose one, I still walk away with the W. Let's see what happens as the game progresses forward. You're absolutely right.
That first real engagement needs to count, so this is how it should be. Nobody goes onto a battlefield and gives up their lives easily.
You know what? Number 1, in real life, you're absolutely serious. Number 2, a PanzerBlitz game, when you play between 2 players that actually know the game and are really serious about it or whatever, you'll do this. You'll feint left, feint right, screw around, mess around, go around the flank, and then when it really comes down to it, yeah, the game might be 10 or 12 turns, you might have 100 units on the table. A good Panzer leader game comes down to 1 move.
It does.
One
It's a
big
chess game.
smash somewhere, and then it's like, okay, when is it coming? Where is it? From what angle is it delivered? And what are the odds at that point of contact? So here we are at the end of turn 6, alternatively titled Judgment Day. And I'll explain what I mean when I say that. So again, Gianna has already lost 1 platoon of her Vespas, or I should say 1 battery of her Vespa self-propelled 10.5 centimeter howitzers back here on Hill 241.6. However, she had 1 battery left, along with 1 battery of even more powerful Hummels 15 centimeter self-propelled howitzers. The range here is 24 hexes. The range of a Hummel SPG battery is exactly 24 hexes. I couldn't believe it when I counted it. But she had that perfectly plotted. That was a direct fire. She didn't even have to call in the grid reference. That was a direct fire mission way over 2.5 kilometers to land here on the objective hex. Yeah, there's the target hex. Not so hot as far as, yeah, there's the mushroom cloud. Not so hot as far as, Soviet prospects there. Now, she did begin to swing that armor back around here, but as she did so, I was able to counter with some opportunity fire from some reserve T-34Cs of 32nd Tank Brigade, 29th Tank Corps. And so now there are, yeah, 2 platoons of burning German tanks in that hex as well. So 5 or 6 platoons of tanks have already been destroyed in that hex. Oh, we also have more German airstrikes. Those HS-129s carry bombs and automatic tank buster cannon. So yeah, there's a lot going on back here. Meanwhile, also on her turn 6, those Vespas that were surviving at the time dropped a fire mission of their own on this objective hex. And then they got swarmed by Tigers, they got swarmed by Mark IVs, although I was able to take out 2 platoons of Mark IVs with my 4 remaining batteries of 76.2 millimeter division guns I have back here in this tree line. And that Battle Group Baja that I was talking about before has indeed come out of October State Farm. They didn't threaten the objective I thought they were going for, so I did get a little misdirected there, but instead they're going to go reinforce and hold objective number 2 up here on the back end of Hill 252. So like I was saying last turn, I held 4 objective hexes, and all I had to do was prevent Gianna from taking 2, and wouldn't you know it, literally on her next turn, she took 2 objective hexes. So here at the end of turn 6, the Germans are winning again 3-2. I don't know if she's going to be able to pull that move off again, because as you can see down here, she has now lost all of her artillery. That move did cost her. So I'm not worried about this objective hex. I'm not really worried about this objective hex. Again, I've got 2 Su-152 batteries sitting on there. She might need another tactical nuke to get rid of those, and wouldn't you know it, she's fresh out of tactical nukes. But the not so hot news is, again, I've lost 2 objective hexes up here in the north. And again, she still holds this one over here to the far west. So, yeah, she, at the end of turn 6, guys, Gianna is winning again, 3-2. Now at the end of turn 7, and we're starting to enter, like, the final phase of the game here. So the Soviets have definitely been woken up a little bit with the loss of 2 objective hexes, suffice it to say. I do finally call in my limited airstrikes. I called in my 2 flights of PE-2 light bombers. They bombed the objective hex. They emptied out some of the German grenadiers that were holding that hex. And I have now swarmed onto the summit of Hill 241.6 with the remains, the sad remains, I should say, of 1446 self-propelled anti-tank regiment. I'm trying to, I don't know if I'm going to take it at this point in the game, if I don't really intend to, but I'm trying to cause some misdirection or some distraction so I can win the battle that I'm really trying to win over here to the east. Again, I think I have the center pretty well locked up. This is now a battle in the flanks. It's who's going to hold Hill 241 and who's going to hold Hill 252.2. This is where the game is going to be decided. Back over this way and back over this way. So again, over here on Hill 252.2, things are getting rough. Grenadiers have now mounted the hill proper. The Tiger tanks have now fired directly point blank into my anti-tank batteries. The remaining Mark IVs, again, they lost 2 platoons earlier, but there are 2 platoons left. They've pretty much absolutely destroyed the 108th Anti-Tank Regiment. That was the regiment actually attached to 29th Tank Corps that day. They're attached no more. They are gone. Even worse, you'll notice I have my brigade command post back here. That's not good. Now, in Gospel and Verse PanzerBlitz, losing a command post doesn't really do anything. When we're playing, we do have an actual game effect for losing your command post. If you lose your command post, you roll a d6 on a 1 through a 3, you're okay. Your brigadier general was there, your lieutenant colonel was there, your second in command was there, or your commander survived, picked up another radio, and was able to continue the battle. Somehow your unit holds together. But on a 4, 5, and 6, whatever morale level your entire force was just dropped by 1. So I'm already a B, and I'm having a hard time keeping my force together. I would become a morale C. Now, zooming in here on the backside of Hill 252.2, there is a little bit of good news for the Soviets. You will see I have just barely managed to retake the objective hex with one of my platoons of Guards airborne rifles. You can barely see it there under all that smoke. Again, stacking rules do apply. We play everything by platoons, so everybody only gets 3 units in a hex. There's 2 rec counters already in that hex, so I can only fit 1 more unit of infantry in there to try to hold that stack. However, they are launching counterattacks into this last battery of Stugs. I do have another whole 3 platoons, including more Soviet paratroopers, attacking up more counterattacks on the south side. 2 batteries of Stugs are already burning. The third one is pinned down. It's not looking too good for the Stugs. I think I may have stabilized things over here on Hill 252.2. But I've still lost that objective hex up there to the north. So at the moment, advantage is back to the Soviets, 3-2. And we're going to have to see what happens as the game progresses. I do technically win on a 3-2 objective hex victory, but it's really close. Right now I have it 3-2, but again, there are still Tigers rolling around. There's still Mark IVs rolling around. These 2 flights of HS-129 still have plenty of ammunition left in their automatic cannon. They've now dropped their bombs, but that's not their primary weapon. Their primary weapon is they're upside down, but you can read it there, that 5A. That's their anti-tank cannon. So yeah, they're still definitely a threat.
Let's go with the pin downs. Let's try those.
We are re-vectoring to secondary target. Those things are scary. The Germans are running away a 3rd time. This is great.
Oh,
Even the aircraft are running away.
They're not running away, they were remissioned.
Thank you, Marty.
They got in front of those Su-152s and said, "Oh my God, that's not a moon, it's a space station!" And they said, "We're gonna go somewhere else."
Right.
I'm gonna try to hold on to this 3-2 lead here at the end of turn 7, but we're gonna have to see how that shakes out. So here we are at the end of turn 8. We're really starting to enter into the home stretch here, and things are starting to settle down in some parts of the battlefield and really ratchet up to new levels of intensity in other parts of the battlefield. Over here, a bit of a surprise battle over here on 241.6. Again, German infantry on defense is pretty tough. People tend to look at Soviet tanks, especially with the kind of numbers that most PanzerBlitz scenarios give the Soviet player when it comes to tanks. And yeah, the German player's like, "Oh my God, how am I ever going to stop them?" Dude, set up some German grenadiers on good ground, give them some artillery support, give them some engineers if you can afford it, and you'll be surprised how strong they are in defense. And even in counterattack, close range counterattack. Again, there's that close assault tactic rule in Panzerleader or PanzerBlitz, which is, man, that ain't nothing to mess with, dude. These Panzer Grenadiers are blowing up these poor little Su-76s like it's nobody's business. Su-76, for people who might not know, they don't even have a roof or a back. It's almost like an open truck with tracks that has a larger 76.2 millimeter division gun on there in an improvised anti-tank hull. So when these guys start getting dive bombed by HS-129s with automatic cannon, yeah, they start going up like Roman candles, guys. Trust me, it's not so pretty. On Hill 252.2, yeah, it's pretty rough. It's a good news, bad news situation as the Soviet player. I'm trying to bring up some reinforcements detached from 31st Brigade over here to help out 32nd Brigade, which has been more or less annihilated in place right by the big German armored push around my wing here. I have another couple of T-70s up here that are sacrificial lambs trying to defend the command post. But now the Tigers are coming in, the Mark IVs are coming in. It was already too late to pull them out. Yes, they did have a truck unit in there, but by the time I loaded them in the truck and tried to get them off the hill with the truck movement rules, at the time there were Stugs back here that would have murdered them anyway. The Soviet command post can't move without the truck. If I tried to move them up here, the engineers would have killed them, the grenadiers would have killed them from Battle Group Baja we were talking about before. These guys just waited a little too long to pull out of there, so I sent in some reinforcements to try and at least let them die with dignity. I don't know about the dignity part, but they're definitely going to die because they're now looking down the barrels of 10 Tiger tanks, again 2 platoons of 5, and 10 Mark IV Aufsprung Gs, again 2 platoons of 5. 20 German tanks are about to overrun basically a Russian picnic table with some radios and donuts on there and maybe a cup of tea, and 2 platoons of terribly light T-70 tanks. This battle is going to be short and unpleasant, suffice it to say, but it's the best I can do. So again, good news, bad news situation. Good news down here, I've pretty much wrapped up things on this objective hex. I don't think she's seriously going to threaten it again, and I don't think I'm going to be able to threaten this objective hex up there. So right now I'm holding on to my 3-2 win. It's like with white knuckled grip. I mean, it's going to be close. Okay, here we are at the end of turn 9, and normally when you play a game like PanzerBlitz, this is normally the part of the game where things start to calm down, things start to settle down. People realize how little time is left on the clock, they realize what they hold, what they can conceivably take, and they just sort of start to hedgehog a little bit and start to consolidate their gains, and you know, everyone's already kind of sort of counting up the score in their head. Not when playing against G, because crazy stuff is still happening in certain areas of the battlefield. So let me go ahead and get started. So again, some time ago, she sort of put down the center of the battlefield, Objective Hex 1, Objective Hex 2. The crazy stuff is over here in the flanks. So sure enough, over here on Hill 252.2, my Soviet commander and his 2 escorting platoons of T-70 light tanks did die a heroic death. Stalin would be proud, except not really, because he doesn't care. I did make the roll for whether or not my overall brigade stayed together or not. I barely made it with a 3, so my morale remains at a B. So some good news, some bad news. So Gianna held this objective hex pretty securely, and she had tanks here ready to... I wasn't sure what she was going to do with them. I wasn't sure if she was going to consolidate her holdings back here, or make some kind of wild and crazy push down here towards my other objective hex. So just in case she chose the latter, I pulled the usual Soviet tactic of a meat shield, and I double stacked infantry platoons on all these entry hexes so that she couldn't overrun the objective hex back here. Those are Soviet infantry, more or less standing elbow to elbow, arm in arm, singing the Internationale as Tiger tanks roll right at them in an open field. They might slow them down just long enough for me to sort of run out the clock a little bit. Except she doesn't really do that. So as she starts to send this attack down here to the south, sure enough, she's making a push for this objective hex. She takes all her grenadiers off this objective hex and moves them into these woods to sort of support this attack. Now, while that's good to support a tank attack against an infantry position with your friendly infantry, especially if there are engineers in there, what's not so hot is if you leave the objective hex unguarded. Again, rear security is a thing. Oriskany soapbox rant number 974. So she sees what's going to happen here, and what she does is she sends 2 platoons of half-tracks, Hanomaks, back here loaded with grenadiers to retake the objective hex. Unfortunately, they are loaded, which means that my battery of Su-152s at point-blank range takes an opportunity fire attack. I'm going to say that again. An Su-152 hits a German half-track at 1 hex range, loaded with German grenadiers, those priceless grenadiers. And then on top of that, there's 3 batteries of Su-76 light assault guns right behind it. So that was just a small tactical oversight. I mean, it happens. We've been gaming by this point by 6 hours, guys. I couldn't not take advantage of it because there were people watching in the chat. They would have seen it, and they'd have been like, oh, Oriskany's throwing the game here. I had to take the shot. I closed my eyes. I wished him luck. And may they find joy in Valhalla. About 120 Germans died right there in that hex with 1 roll of the dice. And even worse news for my opponent, it pretty much gave me that objective hex after all. So, still hold 1, still hold 2. I legitimately took this 3rd one back again, although she didn't steal it from me for a while. And now, through a little bit of a, I just basically got lucky here, I was able to reclaim a 4th objective hex here on the other side of Hill 252. I did not expect that. But it's okay, and Yeah, that's how things look to be shaking out back there on Hill 252. Last but not least, we also have a little bit of a scrap over here still on Hill 241.6. So by now you'll see that 1446 has been pretty much annihilated. Those two platoons of valiant, talk about some Iron Cross guys back here, of valiant German grenadiers are still holding the objective hex back there. Again, it's going to be kind of a run out the clock situation. I think I would take it eventually because I have detached elements of 31st Tank Brigade. Again, please remember how fast T-34s are, and they have zoomed up there to sort of reinforce that position. So here are things at the end of turn 10, and once again, things have pretty much shaken out the way I sort of expected. The Soviets have, again, by the skin of their teeth, held this objective hex here on the backside of Hill 252. The Mark IVs have sort of done a piggyback overrun, which I was actually really kind of impressed to see. Not many people know how to pull that off. Gianna pretty much overruns with her Tigers, smashes a unit that's there in that hex, and then later on in her movement phase, she sends more tanks through to occupy the hex just vacated by the destroyed Soviet infantry, and then tries another overrun here into the objective hex. It almost worked, but it fell just short. Meanwhile, I went ahead and occupied this objective hex back here. I still hold number 3 and number 4, and again, those German grenadiers continue to just stand tall back here on Hill 241.6. Again, I'm pretty sure I would be able to clean that up in like turn 11 or 12, but the game only goes for 10 turns. Again, all these guys have now been fighting for 2 hours in the most apocalyptic combat the human race has probably ever seen. Also, they're all probably out of ammunition now after fighting for 2 hours straight. That's why these games have turn limits. But even if we went ahead and run the clock forward another 2 turns, I would just take this one and she would just take that one. Either way, the score remains the same. We're looking at a 4-1 Soviet win. But this one, I mean, that sounds like it wasn't a very close game, but yeah, earlier, like I explained earlier in this video, earlier in the game, this came close in a couple places. There were a couple bad die rolls for Gianna at the beginning. There was a major shift in her direction. That's probably partially my fault because I tried to save some time at the beginning by putting German forces on the table. Also, if that German artillery had been brought to bear a little bit sooner. There was also a little bit of an oversight back there with those half tracks there on the north side of 252.2. That's just something that happens after running a game for 6 hours. People start making small oversights. That kind of thing happens. And to be honest, I've been playing this game on and off for at least 20 years. And I mean, Gianna has played PanzerBlitz before, but this was her first big game in quite a while. So, but that's where we wound up, everybody, for the end of our Prokhorovka recreation. Again, about 6% of the battle in like the first 10% of the time of the battle, like the first hour or two out of like a 12-hour battle. So all told, this is less than 1% of what actually happened at Prokhorovka. So again, I showed you that map earlier, guys, where you see the sheer size of this battle. But this was representative of what was happening across dozens more Panzer leader tables. What would happen now is that the rest of 1st SS would come on the table, and the rest of 29th Tank Brigade, Tank Corps, and then the 18th Tank Corps comes in from this direction. And then 2nd SS comes up from this direction, and 3rd SS comes down across the Basel River from that direction. Like I said, I showed you guys the map earlier. This goes on and on and on and on for 12 or 14 hours that day, including forces about 15 times the size that we showed here on this table. Prokhorovka was absolutely huge, still undisputed as the largest tank battle in the history of warfare. The climax of what most historians call the largest battle in all of human history. And we tried to tackle just a little smidge of it here on Sitrep Podcast because we're exactly that crazy. So again, huge thanks to Gianna, my opponent. It was a great game. But for now, guys, we're going to go ahead and log off. Thanks very much for checking us out and for all your support. And we will be back to talk to you again very soon.